David Hartley last August turned 28 pounds of scrap wood into a machine that produced 90 pounds of pantry value. Dried chilies, rosemary, thyme, oregano, sage, running entirely on free sunlight. No electricity, no ongoing cost, ever. Watch this build to the end. You'll thank me in January. Every jar on that supermarket shelf, the rosemary, the chili flakes, the oregano, the dried thyme, carries a price tag. And most allotment growers, without ever stopping to think about it, quietly pay that price every single winter. They spend the summer growing more herbs and chilies than they can possibly use, watch the surplus go to the compost heap come October, and then walk into Tesco in January and hand over £2.50 for 18 grams of dried rosemary that came from a farm in Morocco. David Hartley had done exactly this for 3 years running. He'd grown the rosemary, he'd grown the chilies, he'd grown the thyme and the oregano and the sage. And every autumn, when the season closed in and the frosts started threatening, he'd given most of it away, dried a handful badly on a radiator, and headed back to the supermarket shelf like everyone else. 3 years of that. 3 years of genuinely good food going to waste. 3 years of paying retail prices for something he had already grown for free. But in late August of this year, David stood at his plot and made a decision. He was looking at 6 chili plants absolutely loaded with fruit, cayenne, Hungarian wax, a couple of Thai birds he'd grown from saved seed, 3 trays of fresh rosemary that needed cutting back before it went woody, a pot of thyme so overgrown it had spilled out onto the neighboring bed. And he thought, what if none of this has to go to waste? What if there was a way to lock all of this in, properly, shelf-stable, usable through to March, without an electric dehydrator, without running the oven for 12 hours, without any ongoing cost at all? He'd read about solar food dehydrators. He'd seen a few plans online. He knew the principle was simple, but he'd always assumed it was one of those off-grid novelty projects that required specialist materials or unusual skills. He was wrong on both counts. And what happened next changed the economics of his plot entirely. Before David picked up a saw, he sat down and worked out what he was actually trying to solve. The problem wasn't just waste, it was the value gap. Fresh chilies are worth almost nothing at the point of glut. You can't sell them easily. You can give them away, but most neighbors are already drowning in the same things, and they deteriorate within days if you don't act. Dried chilies, on the other hand, are worth something real. Schwartz crushed chili flakes at Tesco sit at around 2 pounds per 28 grams. Own label equivalents run at about 1 pound for the same weight. That's somewhere between 3.5 and 7 pounds per 100 grams, depending on the brand. Dried rosemary. Schwartz 18-gram jars retail at roughly 2 pounds 50. Dried thyme, similar. Dried oregano, a little cheaper per gram, but still significant. The gap between what David was growing and what the supermarket was charging for the dried equivalent was not small. It was substantial. And a solar dehydrator was the bridge between those two figures. The principle behind a solar food dehydrator is beautifully simple, and it's been used in one form or another for centuries. You have 2 chambers. The first, the solar collector, is a sealed box with a dark, heat-absorbing interior and a transparent top, usually glass or perspex, that allows sunlight in and traps the resulting warmth. Air enters at the bottom of this collector, heats up as it passes through, and rises, because hot air rises, into the second chamber above. The second chamber is the drying box, a horizontal or vertical space containing mesh trays loaded with whatever you want to dry. The warm, moving air draws moisture out of the food on those trays, carries it upward, and vents it out through an opening at the top of the unit. The food dries, slowly, evenly, at temperatures high enough to prevent mold, typically between 50 and 70 degrees Celsius on a decent UK summer day, but low enough not to cook the food or destroy its flavor compounds. No electricity, no thermostat, no moving parts. Just physics doing what physics does, with the sun providing the only energy input required. David's build started at Wickes on a Saturday morning. He needed 1 sheet of 12mm exterior grade plywood, the kind treated to resist moisture and warping, which ran him approximately 18 to 22 pounds at current prices. a couple of lengths of 45mm by 45mm treated timber for the internal frame, a roll of food-safe wire mesh for the drying trays, a spare pane of perspex he already had from an old cold frame lid, a small tin of matte black exterior paint for the collector interior, exterior caulk for sealing the seams, screws, hinges for the rear access panel, a simple hook and eye latch. Total spend, approximately 26 pounds, including the timber lengths. He had the perspex, the caulk, and the paint already. If you're starting from scratch with nothing salvaged, budget somewhere between 30 and 35 pounds, and you're still well covered. That's the total capital outlay, one time, and the machine runs indefinitely on zero additional cost. The build itself took David one full day, a Saturday from 9 in the morning until about 5 in the afternoon. He is not a professional woodworker. He has a cordless drill, a circular saw, a tape measure, and a square. That's the toolkit this project requires. He started with the solar collector, 2 side panels, a base, and a back panel, all cut from the same sheet of plywood. The interior surfaces, base, back, and both sides, painted entirely in matte black to maximize heat absorption. The perspex lid fixed onto the top with weather-resistant screws, sealed around the edge with a bead of exterior caulk. 2 holes drilled at the base of the front panel for cool air intake, covered on the outside with a square of insect mesh to keep wildlife out. 2 holes at the top of the back panel where the hot air exits into the drying chamber. He angled the collector at roughly 40 degrees from horizontal, the right pitch for a UK latitude to capture the sun's arc from mid-morning through to late afternoon. A simple batten screwed to the base of the rear panel holds it at that angle. It doesn't need adjusting once it's set. The drying chamber sat above and behind the collector. David built this as a flat horizontal box with 4 runners screwed along the inside walls to support removable mesh trays. Each tray is a simple timber frame with food-safe mesh stretched and stapled across it. He cut 4 of them from offcuts of the original plywood sheet. The rear panel of the drying chamber is hinged. It lifts open to let you slide the trays in and out. At the top of the chamber, a simple vent with a hinged flap you can open or close to regulate airflow. The 2 chambers are joined with a short conduit, a square timber box, open at both ends, that channels hot air from the collector directly into the base of the drying chamber. Every seam was sealed with exterior caulk. David let the whole assembly dry overnight before the first run. But let's talk about the decisions David made during construction that are worth understanding if you're planning to replicate this. The first is the choice of perspex over glass. Glass is heavier, harder to cut, and risks cracking if the frame flexes as the wood expands and contracts through temperature changes. 4mm clear acrylic perspex, available cut to size at most DIY stores, is lighter, easier to seal, and handles the thermal cycling without issue. The second decision was the angle of the collector. David went with 40 degrees from horizontal, which is roughly optimal for a UK latitude of 51 to 54 degrees. The difference in performance between 35 and 45 degrees isn't enormous in a passive solar system, but getting the angle roughly right makes a measurable difference in peak temperature on partially cloudy days. The third decision, and this is the one David considers most important, was the ceiling. Every gap where air can escape is efficiency lost. On a well-sealed unit, internal temperature on a clear day can reach 65 to 70 degrees. On a poorly sealed unit, you're lucky to get 50. David used exterior-grade silicone caulk on every joint, inside and out on the collector box, and around the conduit connecting the 2 chambers. He checked it after the first week of running and found 2 small gaps at the base of the collector. He resealed both and measured the temperature the following day. It ran 4 degrees higher. 4 degrees doesn't sound like much, but in food dehydration, temperature consistency is critical. The target range for drying chilies and woody herbs safely is between 55 and 70 degrees Celsius. Drop below 50 and you risk mold establishing in the warm, moist environment. Go above 75 and you start cooking the food rather than drying it, which destroys the volatile aromatic compounds and produces a flat, lifeless flavor. Sealing is not optional. It's the difference between a machine that works and a machine that kind of works. David also added one modification not in the original plans: a simple thermometer mounted inside the drying chamber, readable through a small clear panel in the side wall. Cost: under £3 from a hardware store. The value it adds is immediate. You can check operating temperature without opening the unit and letting heat escape, and you can make informed decisions about when to load and unload based on actual temperature rather than guesswork. On a clear day in late August, peak temperature typically arrived between 11 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. David began loading at around 9. The unit was already at 40 degrees before the sun reached its optimal angle, and unloaded the following morning. By running the dehydrator at the right time of day and monitoring the thermometer, he achieved consistent results across every batch. The first test run happened on the Monday after build weekend, a clear, warm September morning. David sliced his cayenne chilies lengthways, kept the seeds in, and loaded 3 trays. He angled the collector toward the south-facing wall of his allotment shed and walked away. He checked at noon. The internal temperature read 61 degrees Celsius. By the following morning, 24 hours after loading, the chilies were done. Crisp, vibrant red, intensely aromatic. He pressed one between his fingers and it crumbled to flakes immediately. He tasted one. It was, he said afterwards, the best dried chili he'd ever used in his own cooking. The flavor was concentrated but clean. None of the slightly stale, slightly flat quality you get from a commercial jar that's been sitting in a warehouse for 6 months. Now, the numbers. Because this is the part that made David sit down with a piece of paper and do the arithmetic 3 times. A single well-grown cayenne chili plant in a UK allotment typically produces between 40 and 80 fruits across the season. David had 6 plants. That's a conservatively estimated 240 to 480 fresh chilies. Call it a median of around 350. Fresh chilies are roughly 80% water by weight. 350 chilies at an average weight of around 8 grams each gives you approximately 2.8 kilograms of fresh fruit. Remove 80% moisture, and you're left with somewhere around 560 grams of dried chili material, which, once crushed, yields roughly 400 to 500 grams of usable flakes. At Tesco own label pricing of approximately £1 per 28 grams, that's around £3.50 per 100 grams retail. 400 grams of home-dried chili flakes, a retail equivalent of approximately 14 pounds. At Schwartz branded pricing, close to £28 for the same quantity. Call the realistic average somewhere between 18 and 22 pounds of retail value from the chili harvest alone. Then the rosemary. A well-established rosemary plant can yield between 300 and 500 grams of fresh sprigs across the season without stressing the plant. Dried weight, roughly 60 to 100 grams. Schwartz dried rosemary, approximately £2.50 for 18 grams, around 14 pounds per 100 grams retail. David's rosemary harvest, dried, an estimated retail equivalent of 8 to 14 pounds. Thyme follows a similar profile. Oregano yields slightly more volume at similar retail pricing. Sage, the tray David added on a whim during the 3rd run, is particularly valuable. Schwartz dried sage runs at roughly 2 pounds for 11 grams, making it one of the highest value per gram herbs you can grow and dry. Add it all up across everything David ran through the dehydrator in that first month of operation. Chilies, rosemary, thyme, oregano, sage, dried apple rings from the corner tree, a final run of mixed peppers from the greenhouse. Total estimated retail equivalent, somewhere between 65 and 95 pounds in year 1, on a machine that had been running for 5 weeks, on a plot not specifically optimized for drying crops. In year 2, David is growing more chilies specifically suited to drying, more cayenne and Hungarian wax, fewer thick-walled varieties that hold too much moisture. He'll run the dehydrator from late July rather than early September. He'll add tomatoes, halved and slow-dried over 2 days. They produce something close to semi-dried sun tomatoes, with a retail equivalent of 10 to 15 pounds per kilogram of fresh fruit. He'll add courgette chips and dried apple slices from the autumn harvest. His conservative estimate for year 2, across the full season, somewhere between 150 and 250 pounds of retail equivalent value. the machine paying for itself many times over, on zero running cost, using crops he was already growing. There is, of course, one honest limitation to acknowledge. Solar drying in the UK is weather dependent. A run of cloudy, humid days, not uncommon in August and September, will stall the process. David experienced this twice during his first season, a 4-day gray spell in mid-August and a wet week in late September. During the gray spell, he brought half-dried chilies inside and finished them on the lowest setting of his conventional oven, around 60 degrees, for 2 hours. They came out perfectly. The hybrid approach, solar drying as primary method with a brief oven finish on difficult days, is genuinely practical. The energy cost of 2 hours at 60 degrees in a fan oven is minimal, and the flavor quality of solar primary drying is measurably better than oven primary because the slow, gentle process draws moisture out gradually rather than forcing it out quickly. David's workflow by the end of the season: harvest day 1, freeze anything needing immediate action. Harvest day 2, load the solar dehydrator. Harvest day 3, check the dehydrator, load the next batch, process what came out of the first. He estimates approximately 30 to 40 minutes per week on active dehydration management, loading, unloading, jarring, labeling, once the system was running smoothly. 30 to 40 minutes a week. For 60 to 100 pounds of preserved pantry value per season. That is a return on time that most people would take in any context. The solar dehydrator David built in a single day now sits against the south wall of his allotment shed, a permanent fixture of his growing system. The perspex will last a decade with basic care. The plywood will last as long as the paint holds. David reckons the build will run 10 years minimum with basic maintenance, 10 years of zero running cost, 10 years of turning a summer glut into a winter's pantry. The jars on his kitchen shelf, rosemary, thyme, oregano, crushed chili, dried sage, apple rings, each one labeled with the date and the plot bed it came from. Not bought, not imported, grown in British soil, under British sun, preserved in a machine that cost less than 30 pounds to build and nothing at all to run. That is what plot economics looks like when you stop treating the allotment as a hobby and start treating it as a system. Every harvest is a raw material. Every piece of equipment is a capital asset. Every jar on that shelf is money you didn't have to spend at Tesco. That is grow your capital. Next time on David's Capital Plot, David turns his attention to the crops that most UK growers leave in the ground until the frosts take them. The ones that don't need a dehydrator, a freezer, or any electricity at all. Crops you can store raw, right through to spring, if you know exactly where and how to put them down. It's a video that might change how you think about your entire October. Subscribe now so you're there when it goes live. And if this build has given you ideas, if you're already thinking about what you'd put in the first tray, drop a comment below. David would genuinely like to know. Grow your capital.
Welcome to the Capital Plot.